Namaste.
Namaste.
A warm welcome to all of you. Thank you so much for taking your time off. It's a very critical juncture for humanity as a whole when we are faced with an unprecedented crisis. There are deaths happening around us, closer to us. 3 in my own family in just last 1 week. 1 paralytic attack. Another person got so weak after the liver infection that his scooter skid and he has now plates in his legs. I'm really awestruck by the kind of numbing that we are all going through. Even though having been studying the geopolitical scenario for the past nearly 2 decades, I can very clearly put my fingers on the pulse of where the problems are, how deep and complex the problems are, and get to the simpler, deeper simplicity of where the solutions, where the chinks in the armor of the Goliath totalitarian monster that we are faced with. With this somber note, yes, there will be a time to rejoice very soon, but at this time, we all dealt with a very serious task of stopping a most dangerous, vicious, and treacherous genocide that has ever happened in the entire history of mankind. With me is a very eminent and illustrious panel of speakers with very diverse backgrounds. And it's a pleasure and privilege to welcome all of them. Our first speaker today is Darryl D'Souza, who, apart from being a most fantastic human being, has an amazing story of coming back from nearly 40 years of illness and reverse aging. So he looks much younger at about 52 years than he was 20 years back, as he's also shared in a TED talk with more than 3 million views. He's an engineer at the top of his profession. He quit to become a therapist, come back to his ancestral home in Goa. He's an alchemist, an educator, a progressive organic farmer, an environmentalist, and founder of Earth Keepers Connect. You can find more about him at darryldesouza.com. Welcome, Darryl. Please share your perspective as founder of Earth Keepers Connect and your experiences with Gaia Nation. We had the privilege of hosting you twice for 4-day sessions to sink in our ideas between Earth Keepers Connect and Gaia. And we are all also getting kind of introduced to the global indigenous movement. And I'd also like to understand your perspective on what are the future pathways of the global indigenous movement as you see it. Thank you.
Thank you, Chandra, Vikash ji. Good evening to everyone. And I'm very happy to be on this panel on this very special topic of Gaia Nation. From an Earth Keeper's perspective, now you see I've been hosting as the convener of the New Earth Summit, India's first integrative summit on solutions to our problems, our common problems in health, food, farming, environment, sustainability, and local circular green economy. Now, with the current scenario that's going on in the world, now this summit, actually I started The planning inception happened in 2019 starting. So that's almost 1 year before the pandemic struck. And that happened because in our discussions with our healers and therapists, and also organic farmers and people in environmental projects, we could see very clearly, because we are in all of these businesses and projects, we could see the money moving, the capitalist movement, and how things were getting centralized and controlled. So we felt that, and a lot of, in the name of innovation, in the name of convenience, in the name of packaging things and delivering it, in a very efficient, so-called efficient. Mean it serves you efficiently, but what is it made of? We could see those were all more of inorganic materials, more of plundering of the non-renewable resources of the planet. And so that's how we devised this entire summit, to showcase how this entire centralized system that is, based on capitalism and transnational corporations across the world are increasing with this model. They're increasing the divide between the rich nations and the poor nations. When you see that all nations have resources equally, God has given all nations resources equally, then how does it turn out that certain countries like India are a third world country, and we have to do so many activities to use up our natural resources and provide to other countries just to get the foreign exchange and income, and even our prime minister, since over a decade, he's just after foreign direct investment. I mean, is there no resource and wealth in this land? That's how India turns out to be the largest beef exporter in the world, having, the cow is holy to this land. So we have to understand how this has happened and why India is a third world country, and to earn all this foreign exchange, why we have to, in the sun area, why we have to grow the grass, grow the leaves, feed the cows, cut them up, package them, and send them to all these Western cold countries. So we could see all of these things happening. And in this process, a lot of, especially on food, a lot of packaging, processing, and transport of food across the globe through boats, ships, planes, trains, trucks, and whatnot. And even for your local livelihood, I mean, people, the system is designed that any person who's doing a decent job, they have to travel 1 hour in the morning to work and 1 hour back, so all of this transport, traveling, and just to earn an income, you're making, 10 flights in your country or internationally every month. So we saw the entire system is designed to, destroy the entire planet. And it was how these capitalists have organized all of this. So we designed a system to decentralize all of this, so that people can get food locally, they can get jobs locally, they have local water security, food security, job security. And that's how our project is on this, circular, green, eco-friendly, sustainable, circular green economy. Now, we have put out a video after the summit. So the summit started in 2019, October, and we had 10 sessions on wellness of mind, body, and spirit, then 10 sessions on food and farming, and 10 sessions on environment and sustainability. And these were all experts in their domains. The first year we did it in Goa, so it was speakers from Goa, all who had delivered solutions. So they were presenting the solutions to the public so that more people engage with these solutions. The next year, it was a pan-India conference, and because the lockdown happened, then we did it as webinars. The whole month of November, from 1st November to 30th November, every evening, 2 hours. 1 hour with 4 panelists, experts, and then 1 hour Q&A with the audience. And those recordings have been put on our website. And so we did that in 2021 as well. And now we are gearing up for 22. And in the last year, most of the COVID, malpractices and frauds, and how this entire pandemic has destroyed our world, our livelihood, our jobs, our health, all of that was showcased. And in a very, in a simple way that the common man could understand everything. And after this, we have released, this is very important, we have released a 3-hour video called Making New Earth. That video shows in the first 1.5 hours what has been done in the world by capitalists to set up this entire system. And we call it, that's when the matrix was made. So people are living in these concrete jungles in the city where, the rivers have been dammed, the water has been piped to the city, and they are like a concentration camp, zone where you don't have your own water security. I mean, it's what the government gives you, whether it's chlorinated, whether it's got fluoride in it, you have no say in it. And now, there is so much talk in the world of spike protein being put in the water because they want to vaccinate all the people through the water. So you don't have your water security. You have all packaged products, and all the preservatives are all toxic in nature. You have GMO foods being supplied over there, all unnatural foods and biofortified foods. You don't have your people think they have jobs. I mean, you are doing a marketing job, or you're doing a lawyer's job, or you're doing an engineer's job, but all of those jobs are just making that kind of city model. You see, it's nothing great, and so people have become a rat in the rat race. And if anybody realizes that they have been saying this, that I'm a rat in the rat race, please make a visual of it and imagine yourself on that, small this in a rat's cage. Now that is the matrix, and people think that the matrix is coming now. No, that's not true. So we have all been living in a matrix that has made such a consumer driven society that I'm sure Dr. Susan Raj will give more details on that. uh, and we are all into all of these artificial products and services, and most of them are made from non-renewable resources, and they are digging holes in the earth. And that's why you don't have enough of coal left, you don't have enough of crude oil left, and you don't have enough of minerals left. So such a destructive model, it has become, we have made it very clear in this video, that this model doesn't have another 25 years of any further future. So if we are facing such a crisis, we have redesigned the entire model and shown how you can, these concentrated places, and of course cities also can be made green. And Mr. Chandra Vikash has done wonderful work on that. But we have talked of people, starting going back to the villages, starting to rejuvenate the villages, because there you can have your own water, food, job security, the air is good, the culture is good, and it's a decentralized system. And it's not controlled, it's very difficult to control by capitalists. If you have small ventures happening and, people doing their own work, and, just one level of entrepreneurship investment from your local village people only, and the others can, work along with it. So money can circulate there and make people prosperous. But what has happened now with these city models and damming of these rivers and not allowing water to go down and letting the villagers become prosperous, all the villagers, and that's where the word indigenous comes in. And who are indigenous people? According to me, they are the people who were the earliest inhabitants of a land and who were taking care of that land for thousands of years. And because of this capitalist model, and concentrating people and creating wealth in the cities and jobs. And how could so many people come here? It's because they diverted all the water there, and they slowly started choking the water to the villages. So when you don't have water, you're not able to grow food, you're not able to make homes, you're not able to make products and services, and the economy dies. So this is how all across the world, the local people indigenous to the land have had their water security, their food security, and their local economy destroyed. And uh, so now, after this whole 200 years that has gone by, I hope that all these capitalists, especially, and people realize that we are working in a completely failed model, and we need now, the only place to go is back to the villages. So we need to decentralize, go back to the spaces, release the water from the dams slowly at whatever percentage, so that water can flow down, because we already have a problem of too much congestion in these cities. So that's a problem to be solved, and the only way to solve it is for people to come out of the cities and go to other places. So this is again where we need to respect the local people and the land, because they are the only people who can save us right now. So that's my perspective on looking at uh, the earlier because before all of this industrial revolution came in, there were indigenous cultures all over the world, and they were all self-sufficient, and they were all, with very low or zero carbon footprint, if you want to use that word. And it's only when this new capitalist system came in that all of this destruction happened. So if we want to also bring down all of this industrial, pollution and garbage on the planet, and the main thing is, in this video we have shown that the solution is to stop digging any more holes in the earth, and how you can live a very happy, prosperous, completely fulfilled life in nature with natural resources, with natural products, natural medicines, okay, and green livelihoods. Uh, it is completely possible, and we've shown the way. So that it's not something that still needs to be imagined. So I would like people to watch that video. It's there on my website, darryldesouza.com. Please watch it and understand it, because we've made it so simple that every common person can watch it. They will realize what are the things they are doing at home, which are feeding the old system that is destructive, and how they can change those habits, and have new products and services, and also new jobs. If they got an if they have an ancestral home, that's now I saw this coming in the future. And I was a person living in Mumbai. I used to live, before that I was in Dubai for 2 years. I did my engineering in Pune, but in 2010 I clearly understood that Mumbai is going to get destroyed and people are going to get sick here. And that's when I left and came down to my ancestral home in Goa. The house was falling down, so I took 1 year to kind of refurbish it and all. And that's when I became an organic farmer, because I said that if we want to be healthy, we have to have healthy water. That's not what you're getting in the city. We need to have our own food. That's why I became an organic farmer. And when you start working on the land, then you are bothered with the water quality, the air quality, the pollution of the land, and then you get into this environmental movement, and that's how I became an environmentalist. So, so that is where we are right now. If you watch this video, you will get good ideas. We need to come out of this control matrix that is a destructive model of development on this planet, and we need to take responsibility, each one of us, for our own future, for the future of our planet. And very logically, if the city is destroyed, where do you go? You go to the green pastures where there is water. Right? So that's so I was part of a movement also called From a Madhouse to a Mud House. I was invited as a guest, and I gave a wonderful webinar. It's on my YouTube channel. Please watch that, because we talk of more details. Madhouse is the one that I was living in Mumbai. Right now, it's on the 7th floor, Nazarene Apartments in Malad West in Mumbai, and the terrace is full of these cell towers. And our neighbors were already getting headaches over there and migraines because they were on the other towers, and that's when I decided I need to leave that place. So, so I came from that madhouse, the crazy city, and into a mud house. I'm having a beautiful life. People have apprehensions that when you go to the village, you will not earn money. I've been in the corporate at the peak of my corporate life. When I was offered CEO, that's when I left. And I can tell you, within 1 year of coming to the village and mixing with our people, and with innovative ideas, within a year I had double the income. Within 2 years, I had 3 times the income. So this is for any smart thinking city person who wants to do the right thing. If you are a first mover, then you have many options. You can get into natural homes, you can get into water harvesting, you can get into land, organic farming, natural wellness center. There are tons of things that you can do. Okay, so don't never have this fear that if you leave a city and you come to the village to be with the indigenous people, to rejuvenate, bring back their arts and culture, because it's belonging to your family and your ancestors. Amazing things to do. So that's what I advise. So please watch the video and you'll get to understand this entire movement. You see, so in January, February of 2020, when we realized this pandemic was happening, and we came into March and all, and I remember somewhere near April that I was doing health workshops in Bangalore, and that time I had to this whole thing of not touching other people, wearing a mask and all. So I was teaching acupressure, so I had to make people wash. People were so scared. that I had to ask them to, wash the hands and all with soap after we did the acupressure training session. Now, at that time, when it was pretty clear that there's a global pandemic, of course, people like me and so many in India who are all in the wellness industry, we have an immediate natural response to helping out and fixing this problem. And when it says that there is a virus, we know that we have dealt with millions of viruses before, right? So I was expecting for the Prime Minister of India, as India's a response, to call for a big committee that is involving all the traditional senior medicine systems, the heads of the medicine systems in India. For example, the head of Ayurveda, the Unani, the Ayush, and besides Ayush, there are so many other wellness systems in the country. So I was really looking for that kind of indigenous response. That's what I call it. But and I was also hoping to be come forward and do some work, be part of the committee, because I have convened 7 national level mind body spirit conferences in India, and I worked with thousands of doctors, healers, therapists, natural medicine men. So I was really looking forward to that. And but it didn't happen. April also went by, and May also started happening, and people were getting scared. That's when I did my first webinar online, and it was houseful. I mean, I had a capacity of 100 people, and still 102, 3 were coming in, but they were getting blocked by Zoom. And I did a webinar on the only way to save yourself is to improve your immunity. So we do all these things naturally out of our own desire to help. And so then I heard that the Prime Minister has made a committee. And then I could figure out there were mostly, doctors and certain people from premier institutions in India like ICMR, AIMS, and all of that. And there were no traditional or indigenous medicine practitioners. I was pretty shocked because India has got 4,000 years of natural medicine, right? And then after a year, I come to know that even, they were all the 24 members of the COVID task force of India were served legal notices for being funded over the last decade by Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, by Gavi, by the Global Alliance of Vaccine Immunization, and also PART. So basically, this whole system of bringing a foreign system, a remedy called a vaccine, into India by the CDC and the WHO, this entire body facilitated it. So India was not allowed an indigenous response for our people to come forward and give forth the solution. So that was the first big alarm, and all Indians need to know that. And then secondly, again, even I had COVID symptoms for a week in May of 2021. Even this, so did my 83-year-old mother. And because I've been in integrative natural medicine, teaching it since 16 years, it was very simple for us. Relax at home, have smoothies, take our coconut water, natural supplements, and all of that, and we got cured at home with no problem. So that is the indigenous response. Millions of people in India, they
Yeah.
did not go to the doctors and to the
Uh,
hospitals. That's what I did. And then we all know that, a brave warrior, Dr. Biswarup Roy Chaudhary, with his nice and wise experts across India, they formulated this 3-step flu diet and treated over 60,000 patients in this country and reversed their COVID without a single death, right? So that was one of India's indigenous responses. And that factually is the best performing COVID symptoms cure in the world. I don't think in any country there were 60,000 vaccines given with not a single, there would have been hundreds of, in 60,000 people, there would have been hundreds of adverse reactions and definitely many deaths, right? So what happened is the vaccine can come into a country only when there is no equal to or better performing remedy. But in India, there was. Indigenously, we did give a response, and that was completely shut down. So now we have to look for our future. I mean, how are we supposed to function? Don't we have our rights? And when we had the solutions, it was being suppressed by our own government. So we have to find a solution to this. Thank you so much. That's what I wanted to share.
so much, Darryl. In my understanding, you're not only indigenous in a very deepest sense, in the way you practice, in the way you move from the madhouse to mud house. You're also a role model. So we really look forward to your leadership for the global indigenous movement that we are trying to revive. And incidentally, just for everyone's information, on 5th of May, a 10-day annual session of the UN Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues concluded. And this right now a buzzword that we are indigenous. So we are having this session at a very right time to send out the message to a global audience. Our next speaker for this session is Dr. Susan Raj. She is a behavior specialist, passionate about changing what she calls as the use and throw behavior of humans, which they also extend to everything they consume. She has created concepts to change the current polluting designs of human habitats, and she is very passionate about it, very hands-on. Her mission is to create environmentally and economically sustainable habitats that can change the disastrous city designs. And in our interaction, she also believes that, from indigenous, as we were nudged towards accepting our non-indigenous, was the pathway that leans itself towards transhumanism, where we don't want to go. So that's something that she is very clear about. Dr. Susan, please.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much, Chandra Vikash, for inviting me, and I enjoyed what Darryl said. I'm definitely connected to Darryl for this amazing concept because I am also working in the similar line, and then connecting to Chandra Vikash. And so nice to have Gaia here, and Dr. Banu, Deepak, Professor Sanjay, Jessica, and Mayank. Okay, good. So today I'm going to talk about rights and responsibility versus hypocrisy. This is a behavior. Rights and responsibility is a behavior, and a hypocrisy is a behavior. I'm a BSc nurse and a master's in social work with medical and psychiatry as my specialization. Therefore, I did a behavior specialty with use and throw behavior. Then my doctorate is in humanity. I'm a certified mineral therapist too. So whatever I do, it starts from the health. So I have seen with my experience that health is not the cause or the part of the effect. Health is just an indicator of our behavior with our environment. So when Chandra Vikash, she told me about indigenously, I had to really look for the word and have a lot of talk with him. And then for me, my brain works when the definition is there. And once the definition is correct, then everything falls into place. So for me, what is indigenous? It is those who balance between, who are indigenous people, those who balance between their rights and responsibility are the indigenous people of the earth. I don't believe in the definition which UN has given. Indigeneity, we all belong to the earth. Nobody has to certify me that I am indigenous. We belong to the earth. We are supposed to be indigenous. So how it happens, God has set a formula that these are the rights I have given you, take the responsibility. And those who do that, they are the indigenous people on the earth, of the earth. Second character they have, what are the rights? Rights given by God in the nature are our soil, space, air, fire, and water. These are the 5 elements. And in our Indian language, we call it Bhagavan. That stands for Bhumi, Gagan, Vayu, Agni, Neer. Neer means water. And Bhagwan ki puja. Puja is our jimmedari, right? Bhagwan is our right. Puja is our jimmedari. What is puja means? Purna jimmedari. So in our culture, Bhagwan ki puja was so much engraved into our subconscious mind that we forgot to remain in the consciousness of it. The meaning got distorted. That is where I call it hypocritic behavior creeping in. When we are not in the conscious mind and the information just enter into our subconscious, that can create hypocrisy as a behavior. So to become indigenous people, what we need to do, we have to take responsibility for every rights given by God in the nature. That is, sorry. This thing, I was having a bit of, yeah. That is, nurture the nature's cycle of life. What is the cycle of life? Use it, keep it, process it, and create it into a raw material. Anything, whatever activity, every human being who is breathing, every activity, whether you are at home, you are in the office, you are in the factory, you are in the farm, anywhere, wherever human activity is there, they will have remaining material. And that remaining material at the source has to be converted into raw material. How to do it? Use it. Nobody is asking not to use it. Keep it, process it, and convert into raw material. And after that, all the systems will fall in the right place. Otherwise, what happens? All the system gets distorted, where we create caste system. कि मेरा बचा हुआ माल है, उसको मिक्स कर दिया, फैक्ट्री का माल, ईश्वर का माल, सब मिक्स कर दिया, और कोई एक पर्टिकुलर कास्ट उसको साफ करेगा, सिस्टम बिगड़ जाता है. ठीक है? So that is the definition of indigenous people according to my experience and understanding, and I would like to remain on that till somebody else proves it otherwise. Every interaction with people will end up with some bitter experiences, which must be converted into rich experience by forgiveness and love. Why I said this? Because we use and throw two things. One, we use and throw people, and we use and throw material. That use and throw comes with a behavior called hypocrisy. I will talk about it, and that hypocrisy brings rejection because of the injustice and biases. The moment rejection comes, how to handle it? So whenever we interacting with each other, relationship is happening, there will always be certain bitter experiences in life. To convert the bitter experience into a regret or convert it into a rich experience by forgiving and love, it is our choice. Every remaining material after use must be converted into raw material, period. There is no compromise, there is no argument over it till now, unless until somebody gives me a good reason to challenge it. Because use and throw of people will produce rejection. Every rejected people will bring poverty, destitution, prostitution, and the criminal world will be established. And that is what exactly is happening today. Use and throw of material will pollute our soil, our water, and our air. Then we will get poison in our lungs, in our glass, and in our plate. And are we going to remain healthy? No magic can work there. Indigenous means those people who convert every remaining material into raw material. After this, the social system will handle it as a great resource, where cycle of life is the cycle of life is the lifestyle, where no lifestyle disease will be created. Now we have created lifestyle diseases. We speak about it with a lot of style, and that style will not, that is not indigenous. How to achieve it? connecting our head, heart, and head. Head means our knowledge. Just now we are gaining knowledge. What, why, who, how, when, where, etc. Once the knowledge comes in, we get the knowledge. This is called the triangle of our conscious mind. The heart connection has to be there. That is my emotional connect of belonging. This knowledge is for me and for my people, that my thing comes, and then the hands will take the action. And nothing can stop us from being successful. The triangle and circles of life always fascinate me. Many of you are engineers. You know the importance of triangles and circles in your designs. They are the most stable figures in the universe, mathematics of the universe. Triangle is the conscious mind. I will explain it with our own experiences of driving. Conscious mind is like, you know the destination, you know the path and the direction, triangle. And what is a subconscious mind? Here, the circle is the subconscious mind where routine and repetition happens. When we learn our vehicle first time, we are bothered about where is the clutch and the gear and the brake. Once you repeat it again and again and again, and becomes a routine and sets into your subconscious mind, you have to have only destination in your mind, the path and the direction. Otherwise, we'll be going to the different direction. And unfiltered information. See, when our mind is not kept at the conscious level, then what happens? The destination, not sure. Like Darryl was saying, that we become people who are driven by conveniences. We just are bothered about convenience. And nobody knows what is the destination, what happens after that. And the destination will take us to the destruction. Path, not sure. Direction, not sure. All the informations are coming around us. We are not even asking a question about it. Today, the population has not asked question. Why? What? Why I need to take a vaccination? Nobody asked the question. Oh, I am sitting in a comfortable vehicle. Yaar, kya ke liye puchna hai prashna? Le jayega jahan le jana hai. Now it is taking us to damage of our liver, your bone marrow, everything is damaged. And then after that, you are looking for, oh, मैं अभी मरने वाला हूँ, तब हम लोग को खड़े होने का हिम्मत आता है. So circle is the subconscious mind. When the information is unfiltered, it just goes inside our subconscious mind through the conscious mind. A random cycle sets up, sometimes for disaster and sometimes for success. And that also continuously, sustainably. That is what happens. And that is where we have reached. Health, habits, and habitats. Chalo, I am not going to take this mixing of the facts. It creates the hypocrisy. So what happens? Half facts and half false are mixed, and they are given to us very beautifully. Vaccination, it will save you from all the problems. And natural medicines are no, they are quacks. These are the information we get, and this is what we find now, a use and throw behavior. When facts and false are tried to be balanced, then hypocrisy habit, which always accompanies with injustice and bias, will form. Rejection is the outcome, rejected people and rejected material. The subconscious sets slavery with poverty, destitution, prostitution, criminal world, dumping yard, polluted rivers, polluted air. It is all autocratic dimension. We become slaves. What is the solution? I've got Sagar Mitra, because Sagar सबके लिए भाई. So ये बोलते ना सागर मित्र क्यों बोलने की जरूरत है? अभी हमें अचानक से सागर से दोस्ती की क्या जरूरत है भाई? Why we सागर मित्र, friends of ocean? There is a reason. जब when the sun, the ocean the land and the air in the space were together. They found that पृथ्वी पे कुछ नहीं था, सुनसान पड़ा हुआ पृथ्वी. तो बोले कि सूरज ने पूछा सागर से, तेरे पास सारा जिंदगी है, लाइफ इज विथ यू, लुक एट दिस अर्थ, इज ऑल सूखा सूखा, कुछ नहीं उसमें. तो हवा ने बोला सही बात है. तो सूरज बोला मैं गर्म हो जाता हूँ. तो उसमें से बादल बना के निकाला. हवा ने कहा मैं उड़ा लेती हूँ. और वह जब पृथ्वी पे आके बरस गई तो पृथ्वी लहला गई. पृथ्वी said, wow, I am so beautiful. And she danced and created mountains, and all the waters came into rills, drains, and created rivers, and then came back to the ocean. And that is why all of them were in the friendship, दोस्ती में थे वो लोग. और उस समय फिर इंसान का जन्म हुआ. और हम लोग ने अपने ज्ञान से क्या बढ़िया बना दिया, उनके बीच की दोस्ती को तोड़ दी. Today we have 2000 kilometers north to south and 800 kilometers east to west, 30 feet of a height plastic island in the North Pacific Ocean. Our oceans also, that is at least measured. It has all gone from our homes. कचरा आपत्ति बन गई. कैसे? इन जीवों के लिए देखो. मछली पकड़ने वाले मछली पकड़ लिया, जाल को फेंक दिया. The small nanoparticles of our beautiful plastic, which was supposed to be converted into raw material and gone back to its home, the factory, and energy में convert होना था या फिर से वापस material बन के आना था, वो चला गया है हमारे फाइटोप्लैंक्टन्स के शरीर में. हाँ, ये लोग कौन है? They maintain the oxygen level in the ocean. 70% is gone. हम लोग का काम, वाह वारे इंसान, हाँ, ये हमने किया. जाल से रोकने की कोशिश, दिमाग से रोकने की कोशिश होनी चाहिए. मछली पकड़ रहे हैं, नहीं पकड़ सकते हैं अभी. हाँ, देखो नदियों का हाल, फिलीपींस में देख लो, केरल में देख लो, हमारे राजस्थान में देख लो, पूना का देख लो. हाँ, ये हम लोग करके बैठे हैं, वाह रे वाह, इन नदियों में आया है. अब हमारे दादाबाड़ी में देखो, ये डंपिंग यार्ड देखा होगा अपने शहर में. डंपिंग यार्ड दिल्ली में कौन बैठा, देखो आपका कितना मंजिल का डंपिंग यार्ड है. हाँ, मेरा छोटा सा गांव में बनने लग गया डंपिंग यार्ड. ये हमारे दिमाग के अंदर का प्रॉब्लम यहाँ दिखाई दे रहा है. मेरी जमीन में 200 फीट नीचे गहरा पानी भी खराब हो चुका है और हमारे इंजीनियर्स बैठ के आरओ सिस्टम बना रहे हैं. समथिंग we have to become indigenous in our mind here. और भी देख लो, रस्तों पे देख लो, हमारे नजारे हैं. हाँ, गायों के पेट में अभी तो कहते हैं, डायरल बता रहे थे कि हमारे यहाँ से सबसे ज्यादा बीफ एक्सपोर्ट होता है और गौ माता की सबसे ज्यादा रिस्पेक्ट की बात कहते हैं. हाँ, हाँ, और उनके पेट में हम भर के देते हैं माल जो कि फैक्ट्री में जाना चाहिए था रॉ मटेरियल बन के, और हम कहेंगे प्लास्टिक बुरी है. अरे प्लास्टिक को तो प्लास्टिक जैसे बनाया है, तुम्हारी आदत बुरी है फेंकने की. We produce 500 grams every day outcome from our hands every day from a home. Out of that 20 gram is plastic. What you have to do? Clean it up. Responsibility. आया ना आपके घर में बिस्किट लेके, दाल लेके, फ्रूट्स लेके, उस प्लास्टिक को इज्जत दो. यूज करने के बाद फेंको मत, साफ करो. कबाड़ी वाले बैठे हैं 300 साल से रिसाइकलर बन के. जब आप साफ ही नहीं करोगे तो वो आपके लिए चुनेंगे जाके? कभी नहीं. जिम्मेदारी लेने की आदत होनी चाहिए. ये हमारे बच्चे, इन लोगों ने अभी, ये मेरा 2 साल पहले का है, 15,000 kilos of plastic they have sent it to the factories. They are so proud. Children are the amazing people to work with. So we have 2.5 lakh children in Pune. Now, because 2 years it was closed, so all these children called our project into their societies. So almost 40% of the Pune people are able to segregate things at home at the source. This is in Kota. School children are getting it from their home. Every day they make sure that none of the plastic will become homeless. So till 2019, 1,300 kilos, they had already saved it from going into the oceans. These are the engineers who had started becoming Kabaddi, the kabadiguy.com. But poor thing, he stopped it now. But anyway, we have to become indigenous. This is what I call indigenous. दिमाग में indigeneity होनी चाहिए, जिम्मेदारी लेनी है. Oil factories हमारे दोस्तों ने खड़ा किया है. It is very profitable, but because of the hypocrisy in the mind, it is not getting established. पर हो जाएगा. These are the things we can do. You can make bricks, you can make walls, you can make roads. आइडिया करो तो क्यों नहीं आएगा? ऊपर वाले ने दिया है ना, दिमाग प्रोडक्शन किया है ना आपने, तो उसका रॉ मटेरियल का यूज होना ही है. यदि हमें ये नहीं चाहिए प्लास्टिक, फेज आउट भी करना है, तो जमीन में गड्ढा खोदना तो बंद करो, जमीन से ऑयल निकालना बंद करो. ऊपर वाले ने एनर्जी के लिए हमारे पास बहुत दिया है, सूरज खड़ा है, पानी है, हवा है, हमारे पास आइडियाज बहुत है. चाहिए तो ये बात दिमाग में इंडिजिनिसिटी आनी चाहिए कि दिस planet is mine and I take responsibility. And that's it. This is the cycle of life. Every remaining material to be converted into raw material at every home. Then systems in the communities will be set up and they will take care of everything. Okay, so we are not supposed to be dying of diseases. We are supposed to be dying of only accidents while doing adventures. The earth is beautifully made for our adventure. And then diseases are only to keep your immune system active, not to kill. Beautiful system. And we create wrong definition. WHO definition बदल देता है और हम लोग उस definition पे चलते जाते हैं. कभी कोई प्रश्न नहीं पूछा डेफिनेशन के लिए, है ना. डिसीज का डेफिनेशन अलग, हेल्थ का डेफिनेशन अलग. तो एंटीबायोटिक बनाएंगे माइक्रो ऑर्गेनिजम्स को मारने के लिए, पर हमने हेल्थ को सही समझा तो हम लोग प्रोबायोटिक बनाएंगे, पर डिटॉक्स कैसा करना है जरूर सीख जाएंगे. एंड हैबिट्स मस्ट चेंज टू बी हेल्दी. And this is one of the designs which we have created for a sustainable habitat, where the sustainable health and habitat is ensured. I want it to happen in reality. I'm sure that you all have created different models, and one day, before we pass away from this planet, we'll be able to live in those models and go. Okay, that's it. So we are here to take back our freedom, health freedom, personal freedom, technology to follow law of the nature. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Susan. You really very beautifully and exquisitely explained what I would call being indigenous in practice. Interestingly, what you call as leftovers as raw material, Peter Senji, in a seminal paper way back that was published in the Sloan Management Review. I remember this was almost 25 years back, about post-industrial revolution. He uses the term technical nutrients. And just like you're saying use and throw, he talked about moving from take, make, waste industrial system to a cradle to cradle industrial system. So these were the buzzwords, but the hijacking has happened only around 2000. So I'll come to that. Our next speaker has a very different perspective of indigenous in genetics. We may or may not agree with all his aspects, but he has a very sound belief and he's very passionate about it. He also represents the Indigenous People Confederation of South India, which is a very large gathering. And I had the opportunity to attend its very excellent program on 26th of January on Constitution Day in Bengaluru. Dr. Banu Prakash is also a neurosurgeon and one of the most dynamic indigenous activists. He is also a practitioner, and I staying with him for a good week. He is also very much indigenous in his lifestyle, in terms of the food, in terms of various other ways that I had interaction with him. Welcome, Dr. Banu Prakash.
Thank you, Chandra, Vikash. Definitely a good discussion what we are having. I love the idea of being indigenous means to be in sync with the nature. That is what I call the ecologically effectiveness, which I always say that our carbon footprint should be the least. And how much burden are we for the ecosystem? That should be our lifestyle. So coming to the genetic aspect of it, what WHO has told, what I have realized, the history of Earth and humanity. Gondwana was the plate of tectonic plate, which was initially on this Earth, and life started over there. There are multiple theories of it, the evolution theory and the other theories, and the alien theories also all there. But let us consider take into consideration that evolution theory happened, and it started in the Africa, the Gondwana plate, and as the Africa, India, and other plateaus, they started drifting out. And what I have observed is there is a lot of similarity between the Africans of the Adivasis in Karnataka also, the Africans and the Adivasis in Karnataka. So they have like curly hairs, they have that's body structure, and also the iris maybe mainly. The iris scan, why all other card and most of the biometrics are looking at the irises. Iris is the reflection of our genes, what genes we have. Aborigines like the India, we have the dark iris, the black iris, and the Romans have the blue iris. So we find a spectrum of color variation from the blue to the black, like green, then yellow, and even brown, different degrees of brown. And maybe if I can focus to all your eyes, maybe I can say that how much hybrid we are. We are not actually purebred Romans, we are not purebred Dravidians, but we are hybrids. So this hybridization has happened over millions of years. And the millenniums, because there are some news articles which say that the human history has been manipulated to such an extent that people don't want to realize the truth of the nuclear wars which were played. Maybe actually Mahabharata was true, or whatever the previous civilizations, what blunders they made. And even in the Grand Canyon, there are evidences of cannibalism. So all such evidences, when we look at, maybe we are being led by a narrative of what is happening is the right thing, and what is happening will be the best thing. So with this narrative is the same COVID, the AIDS, the MARS, and then H1N1 and all these viruses, and even the money matters like the banking system, the military, be it the Ukraine and the Russia war, or the Gulf War before, or Indo-Pak, Indo-China tussles and other things. So we are being led by narratives, and this is definitely, ultimately, everything boils down to the psychological war, what I call psychological slavery of humanity by some races. So there is tribalism by Zionists, they call Zionism, and there are the Jews wants to dominate the whole world, and there are other races which are the Christianity, which led a lot of crusades across the world and try to loot the resources of the third world, and at the same time kill lot many people. And even when it comes to Indian history, because I haven't analyzed these perspectives in different countries, but in India, as a neurosurgeon, I usually see the pupils. So we are made to see the pupils, and now what I've realized is the wide spectrum of pupil, the iris, the wide spectrum of the color changes in the iris, which are actually the reflection of our genes, has made me understand that there is significant Roman Aryan genes in the North India as compared to the South Indians. And in the South India also, even in Karnataka, there's a lot of hybridization. I'm a light brown eyed guy, and there are dark, black iris people in Karnataka, but much more in Tamil Nadu and Kerala and even Sri Lanka. So the aborigines have been slowly being, and one news what I was interesting was the Indus Valley civilization was full of Dravidian genetics. That's what they say, because some genetic studies are there. And even in the Indian maternal genetics, the maternal mitochondria, they say in India, most of the cytoplasmic mitochondrial DNA is Dravidian DNA. That means that the Aryan invasion, whatever happened, was happened by only the men, and not many women came. So the Roman Aryan, what I really initially I used to say is the Aryan from Eurasia, but probably it's the Roman supremacy, like the Alexander who wanted to conquer the whole world. There were other tribes who wanted to conquer the whole world, and they spread out across the world in a slow way to. That was a slow invasion, and what I call the population jihad, the original population jihad. They came to different countries, they intermingled with the population. They segregated the people according to the genes, according to the iris. But we were taught something wrong narrative of caste. And the people who manipulate, they know the genetics, they know the iris, and they know the who are the aborigines and who are the hybrids and who are the invaders, and they manipulate the whole narrative across all the nations. That is what the parallels, what I have understood now. So in this narrative, the aborigines have been sidelined from power. Even when it comes to Indian perspective, there were wars wherein the hybrids and the invader pure breeds, they were the kings, but the aborigines were the soldiers. So two countries, two kingdoms, when they fought, the aborigines died. But ultimately, when the war ended, either the one king would have given his daughter or even his wife to the other king, and they both lived happily. So that was the treachery which they did. So jokes apart, definitely there was a lot of genetic sidelining and genetic suppression which has happened. And even now with the Aadhaar card, with the iris, I think they are discriminating for job applications and even to the extent of NEET exams. Because in NEET, the Tamilians are fighting it tooth and nail, because they know that the indigenous Tamil people are not getting good ranks and they are not getting the seats in the Tamil Nadu medical colleges, but all the North Indians are getting more seats. So this sort of a disparity, and given the governmental policies like the INR ratio, the or reproductive ratio, the reproductive ratio for Bihar and North India are far higher as compared to what the targets were given for South Indians. So all these policies and all these attitudes, and Deepak Vyas, you have put up Hanuman's figure. But Hanuman, I say, is a psychological slavery concept for downgrading the Dravidians as monkey men and as slaves or as submissive people as compared to the Aryan Ram. So this is what is the truth we need to understand in the perspectives of politics and even medical field, because knowledge is integral, it is holistic. We can't segregate knowledge as personal, professional, or political, or even medical and economic or anything. It's all integral. So when we start integrating everything, then truth comes to us. So let us understand with these perspectives. So the WHO definition of genetics is the indigenous people. There are definitely few indigenous people, the less number of indigenous people, lot many hybrids are there in each country, and lot many people who are invaders with still the invading mindset. And I thank Susan Raj for that definition of indigenous people. Let us understand indigenous is, I always used to say, why should I go to Kashi or Tirupati and give my earnings? Or why should a Muslim go to Mecca? Why should a Christian go to Vatican? Why can't we invest the same money in rejuvenating the ecosystem? Because of what I realized is truth is the only religion and nature is the only God, and the law of nature is karma. So if we understand this, then we'll start ecological rejuvenation as the first priority of our job rather than anything else. So once we start doing this, then with that mindset, everybody is indigenous. But with the genetic perspective, what the WHO is saying may be right, but what we need to correct is the supremacy psychosis, what I call, that somebody is supreme by caste, creed, or religion, or race, or even genetics, or even wealth, or power, or degree of birth, or age, or even whatever discriminations what we make in the society. I mean, I had a junior we both were fighting for doing neurosurgical cases, but he died of a road traffic accident. Then I felt maybe I should have let him do all the surgeries before he died. So we don't know what is our timeline, what is whose timeline. If Vivekananda, everybody knew that Vivekananda would die so early, probably they would have made him the prime minister. But we couldn't do because we don't understand the timeline. But let us understand the truth is the only important thing. And let us give value for truth in every person, be it the child or a newborn till the person who is dying. And let seniority be not by age, but by values and ethics and service to the humanity. And that selfless service should be because as a neurosurgeon, I mean, I went through a journey to come to this understanding and all. I was searching for what is the cause of the diseases. Initially, I felt it is our lifestyle, it is our diet. I advise for Ashtanga yoga, I advise for organic food, then forest food. And ultimately, what I found that 80% of our health is based on our mind, and 20% is on our food, because there are laborers who eat junk and then they still live healthy, because they have that fire of hunger which can destroy even the poison, I say. But for people who are sedentary, who are just doing just jobs, whatever the best food we eat also can become poison because of excessive calories. So with that perspective, we need to change our mindset. We need to think of what is the rightful. The truth in our thoughts, in our words, and in our actions is what makes our health. Why? Because the madam said about the subconscious mind going in circles. The subconscious mind has a small circle in the brain and also has a big circle which is looping from the brain, the pituitary till the coccyx. All the circles, the neural networks, the chakras are very similar to the sympathetic and parasympathetic nerve plexus in our body. So our thoughts, our words, they reverberate in those chakras, and that is what creates our diseases, and that is what creates our suffering. So we need to be truthful and speak the truth and do the truth, and that's how we need to ensure that. And beyond the truth is the love and compassion. We need to be helpful to each other. That is what I call helpobics. We don't need to do jumping and running aerobics, but we need to do helpobics, helping others in our professional life, in our personal life, in our social life. So, and also I call it the Saha Yoga. And also what we do is we need to create the loving atmosphere. I would love to heal Bill Gates with much more love and compassion. Soros and Schwab, or even Rothschilds and Rockefellers, heal them to confess what they have done, to reset what they have done. The global reset, the big reset, what they want to do is resetting their minds, not the world. Their minds needs to reset to an extent that they should stop being greedy. They should love to live with everybody, because this is what I call the supremacy psychosis. They are like small children who are seeking attention. They want power, they want money, they want resources, just because they want to be loved. Let us give them that love, let us give them that compassion, and ensure that they also are healed. At the same time, let us create awareness among the aborigines, among the hybrids who have higher amount of aborigine genes, who are suffering with diseases and mortality, and also create awareness among them and prevent the complications. And so from the top end and the bottom end, the change should happen simultaneously. Then only we can create what I call the Satya Yuga, and we all can become what we call Vishwamanava, the global citizens, and ensure that love and compassion can heal us. Definitely, everybody was greedy. Because I usually tell my patients, if you think that, okay, my income should decrease, my assets should decrease, then only some child born in Africa or Bihar or in Bellary or in the slum nearby will get its share of milk. if we develop that sort of graciousness, then only we'll be sharing and caring for everybody, sharing the resources of the earth, because the ecological resources have dwindled to far lowest point than the rejuvenating capacity of the ecosystem. So we need to utilize the ecosystem at or much lesser than the rate of its rejuvenation, and at the same time, replenish the whole lost resources. So maybe we can forestify the Thar Desert or the Sahara, and also create much more streams and rivers, so that we are secure for our food, water, and air. So let us all, work together unitedly for creating more love and compassion in this world, for so that everybody lives and let lives. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Banu. I'd also like to listen to more about the Indigenous People Confederation on South India. So I'll briefly share that in the event that I attended on 26th of January, there was a young dance group from
Chennai.
a university in Tamil Nadu.
Chennai.
And they had put up an excellent dance performance, a folk dance with lots of animalistic move. And that really, uplifted the mood of the whole crowd. And it was an excellent, performance. Coming to the next part, I'll be sharing a presentation. Yeah, so we need a mass formation for Gaia nation. I borrowed this term, recently made very popular by Matthias Desmet, the clinical psychologist from Ghent University in Belgium, who talked about how we have been led into a mass hypnosis to blind over the unscientific basis of the lockdowns, the way the viral infection cases were being recorded, the RT-PCR test, and the vaccine itself, which by now we know has snake venom peptides. So we need. So he also talked about that mass formation is not necessarily about deluding people. It can also be used in a positive way to bring about transformational changes. And that is what our objective with the mass formation for Gaia Nation call is, to chart out future pathways for global indigenous movement. As I'll just share, as most of us seem to be very unaware of what has been happening at the global stage. All of us carry the memory of the day and very nostalgically, very romanticized manner for many of us, including myself, my summer vacations in my maternal place, when the world supported all of its people, feeding us, taking care of us, putting us to sleep with the songs of the birds, rivers, waterfalls, and forests. Were we an underdeveloped world then? I think this is the key question we need to ask ourselves. Why did we fall into the trap, the chimera of development, in the way the non-indigenous world order tried to define it? And this is what I call the real HIV pandemic, alternatively human indigenous deficiency virus. What blinded us was our hubris, the meritocratic bias and prejudice that crept in, and we all got kind of sucked into our degrees and into the higher premium institutes, including myself, at the formative age. I was so crazy for getting into, IIT and then IIM, only to realize much later what the big trap was. Our ignorance, because as we got uprooted, we might have learned lots of fancy mathematics and scientific terms. But what about the botanical quotient? What is our knowledge of the local flora and fauna? What is our knowledge of the rainfall pattern? What is our knowledge of the various food habits to be eaten in every region and every season. So all this led to, at some point of time, vanity, in a way that we just wanted to get, along with it without caring where it was leading to. So HIV pandemic, to my understanding, is about the dehumanizing and despiritualizing humanity. The first stop, the first hard stop, was to call ourselves as non-Indigenous. And that lends itself to the grotesque and macabre vision of transhumanism. So if we really want to stop this in its tracks, we must get away from what Kim Knight from Art of Health talks about, the unnatural, and I qualify the non-Indigenous transhumanism, genetic modification, dehumanization, despiritualization, separatedness, to a natural and indigenous, where we follow nature in harmony, beneficial, self-empowered, love, care, connection, what all the speakers have so beautifully dwelt into. That's a better way. The genesis of global indigenous movement, very quickly, as you can also read, starts with Chief Descahe of the Iroquois Confederacy, the Six Nations, what's called First Nation in Canada. And he led a delegation to the League of Nations to demand sovereignty and for recognition of what was called the League of Iroquois Confederacy. But the dispute was dismissed in those very heady times as a domestic matter of Canada. This was the ugly peak of colonialism after the First World War. A good 5 decades later, it was Grand Chief George Manuel from the National Indian Brotherhood in Canada attended UN conference on the human environment in Stockholm, Sweden, whose picture you see on the right-hand side. Incidentally, 50 years after this 1972 event, Stockholm is organizing an International Environment Conference on 2nd and 3rd of June, which is called Stockholm Plus 50. The agenda in 1972 that was set was the beginning of Indigenous participation in international environmental negotiations, which is key to getting a breakthrough to the COVID crisis. The Stockholm Declaration and Action Plan did not, however, acknowledge Indigenous peoples, demonstrating the need for more organizing. Manuel organized the first modern pan-Indigenous organization called the World Council of Indigenous Peoples. And then there was this stellar role of Dr. Erika Irene Dias, who was an academic, a diplomat, and best known for her work with the United Nations Working Group on Indigenous Populations. And she also authored various books. One of them is emphatically called Indigenous People, Custodians of the Future and Keepers of the Past. So that was very emphatic in terms of what even thinkers like Noam Chomsky and even Antonio Guterres, before he got swept aside by the COVID mafia brigade, was talking about returning to indigenous ways of life for every one of us. So as we go along, the UNDRIP, the driving force being Dr. Erika Irene Dias, it picked up some of the very controversial issues. And this is the reason why so many so-called sovereign nation states have sidelined and suppressed the expression of indigenous rights as awarded by the UN Declaration for Rights of Indigenous People, self-determination, collective land rights, and the requirement of their free, prior, and informed consent, which was again violated in the COVID saga for major projects of their lands and territories, and now, of course, our own bodies. UNDRIP enshrines these three elements and sees guided developments on indigenous rights across international negotiations. Indigenous people wanted to create a permanent forum in the UN hierarchy as possible. And that is something that was betrayed and violated. What we effectively got was an advisory role to ECOSOC, which before that is UN General Assembly, and at the apex is the UN Security Council, which is effectively a club of aggressors. And it's very ironical that the warmongers, the aggressors, are called a Security Council. So that's where, you know, the fish rots from the head down. That is why we are in such a you know, pathetic, in such a miserable state today. The UN Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues has annual session, which has just concluded 2 days back. And so this is the right time to raise our voice and to take charge of the global indigenous movement and challenge the prevailing discourse on sustainable development. So very interesting points that we must you know, move away from just the health perspective of the COVID crisis and come to its ecological perspective, where I believe the breakthrough solutions lie. The worldviews of indigenous peoples have also challenged the prevalent discourse on sustainable development, calling for recognition and respect for their traditional knowledge and collective rights to use and control the lands and natural resources that they depend on and strive to protect. And very interestingly, even though a billion plus Hindus in India are not recognized as indigenous, but if we see the recent political surge of the current ruling party, it has lots to do with its recognition and respect of traditional knowledge and collective rights, though they are very hypocritical about it. We also recognize the importance of United Nations Declaration for Rights of Indigenous People in the context of global, regional, national, and sub-national implementation of sustainable development strategies. But very unfortunately, it has been limited in its communication and in its dissemination up to the grassroots level through very clever, dirty tricks of restricting the number of indigenous people to only certain you know, sections, staying in the forests or in by some skin color or by some genetic type. So that doesn't serve any of us, as I would like to highlight that the mass formation of more people identifying themselves as indigenous actually helps everyone else in creating abundance and in addressing many of the outstanding problems. Indigenous peoples organizations also worked on the sidelines of sustainable development process, adopting a epochal universal declaration of the rights of Mother Earth at World People's Conference on Climate Change and Rights of Mother Earth in 2010 in Cochabamba in Bolivia. And somehow this was sidelined, though the demand was to present it in the United Nations General Assembly for adoption. This declaration stands in opposition, which many of our you know, very vocal and aggressive activists of COVID should know, that the declaration of Mother Earth, rights of Mother Earth, is actually in opposition to the green economy and growth narrative, which has been greenwashed into the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development Goals. So we must be informed. Ignorance is not bliss, and many people are shouting from the rooftops that SDG is about the ecological agenda. No, it is actually about greenwashing and suppression of the true ecological agenda that the indigenous people have stood for. So what does the Universal Declaration for Rights of Mother Earth talk about? This just corroborates, this reinforces what we've been talking, the hashtag "We are all indigenous." We, the peoples and nations of Earth, considering that we are all part of Mother Earth and indivisible. Please read it as many times as you need to. Living community of interrelated and interdependent beings with a common destiny. We are on the same boat on a free-floating planet, which is very vulnerable, very fragile. It cannot bear our non-indigenous lifestyle. So if you have been making this sin, this mistake, this crime, please stop calling yourself non-indigenous if you really care about your own life. Gratefully acknowledging that Mother Earth is the source of life, nourishment, and learning, and provides everything we need to live well. So my shout out to all of you 7.8 billion humans is that if you don't appreciate that Mother Earth is the source of life, then you are automatically qualifying to be called as hackable animals and to be injected with all kinds of chips and poisons, as Yuval Noah Harari and our dear Klaus Schwab, Bill Gates, and for Anand Mahindras and the Narendra Modis of the world, the hypocrites, recognizing that the capitalist system, that's our real challenge. Let's not miss the bus. How the capitalist system is leading to depredation, exploitation, abuse, and contamination have caused great destruction, degradation, and what Dr. Banu Prakash said, the dwindling of the ecological reserves is what makes us fight among ourselves to protect our turf. But if we have abundance, there will be more love, more compassion, putting life as we know it today at risk through the phenomena such as climate change. Convinced that in an interdependent living community, it is a small blue-green planet, it is not possible to recognize the rights of only human beings without causing an imbalance within Mother Earth. And this is the curse of Marxism. It is so anthropocentric. It only talks about trade unions and about big industries, ownership. So it is the dialectic has defeated us of capitalism and communism. Both are non-indigenous in the true sense. Affirming that to guarantee human rights, it is necessary to recognize and defend the rights of Mother Earth and all beings in her, and that there are existing culture, practices, and laws to do so. Dr. David Frohle, one of the leading exponents of Sanatan Dharma, talks about Hindus being the largest indigenous community, and yet we are disenfranchised. We are not even counted, even though we reverberate this thought in the Vedic mantra, Gavo Vishwashwamatra, which Gaia truly means, Earth is the mother of all creation. So how are we different from people who wrote this declaration or who are identified as among those 370 million indigenous people? We are all the same. There is a deliberate, dirty trick to divide us. Proclaim this universal declaration of the rights of Mother Earth and call on the General Assembly of the United Nations, but we have been betrayed on this count that denies us the right to promote through teaching, education, and consciousness what Dr. Susan has already been doing in such excellent manner, in such expansive manner, raising respect for the rights recognized in this declaration and ensure through prompt and progressive measures and mechanisms, national and international, their universal and effective recognition and observance among all peoples and states in the world. What Matthias Desmet or any clinical psychologist will tell you that if you want to break the spell of mass hypnosis, move from the point of attraction, which is the virus and the vaccine. Stop talking about the virus and the vaccine for at least the next 15 days, and you will see the problem dissolve itself. Let's take a vow. Let's resolve that we are all indigenous, we humans around the world, irrespective of the color of our skin or of the iris, our body structures, size of the skull, and length of our noses, the diverse dialects and languages we speak, our kaleidoscopic diversity of music and dance, art and poetry. We are all indigenous. We are all on the same boat. We swim or sink together. The only exception is for those who do not follow the house rules of living in harmony with nature. What Dr. Susan, in such a earthy way, talks about the use and throw. The use and throwers are the non-indigenous people who respect their rights and their responsibility, are the indigenous on this lovely blue-green planet that we believe and regard as mother. And the non-indigenous are the ones who treat the earth as a concubine, as a kept to be raped and plundered. So the making of UN Declaration for Rights of Indigenous People took 3 decades of intense work, of taking up lots of controversial issues. Lots of hard work went into it. But we, the educated masses of India, are so willfully unaware of participating in this global indigenous movement process. And yet we want our puppet government. We place all our attention on the puppet government because we are already psychotized. We are already hypnotized. So let us first heal ourselves. Let's first cure ourselves before we take the you all know Hararis and the Klaus Schwabs and the Bill Gates and the Bidens and the Macrons and the Modis to task. On 13th September 2007, it will be 15th year of passing us this declaration. I gave a translation in Hindi to the former culture minister, Dr. Mahesh Sharma, and told him how numerous problems and in international negotiations, India could make breakthroughs and we could give much better life to our people. We could get rid of the curse of hunger and malnutrition and the stunting and wasting of our children, the rotting of our demographic dividend, the loss of schooling, so many, treacherous cannibalism that we are impinging upon our children and on the marginalized sections of the society, which are now more than 90% of the population. This declaration was passed by consensus. Even the 4 votes against were reversed. And the only countries, some of them that abstained for some reason because the definition is not so clear. But then there is this very treacherous UN fact sheet, which is a bundle of contradictions. But while we are fighting pitched battles in the lower courts, in the high courts, and we keep getting promises that this will be solved in this court and the other, but the real battle had to be fought on the UN platform because it was a global crisis. But it took so many deaths and distress. And now at the brink of the World Health Assembly starting from 22nd of May. So I beg all of you from the bottom of my heart for the lives of those innocent people who are going to be sacrificed because of your hubris, because of your ignorance, because of your vanity, that you kept wasting our time in the courts of the puppet governments, of the puppet judiciaries. You didn't listen to the sane voices. UN fact sheet admits that there is no official definition of the indigenous. And then he goes about saying that it is a self-identification at the individual level as well as community level. Most people around the world today self-identify, as I've asked in session after session. And I asked the UN the question, how does it arrive at the number of 370 million? This is not so rocket science as the RT-PCR COVID cases that we are so hypnotized about. This is so crystal clear. We can go and sign a referendum saying that no, we are more than 370 million. We are all 99.99% of people on the Mother Earth are indigenous. And that will change the discourse. That will change the game. That will kill the Goliath for all we care, for the lives of our dear and near ones, and for ourselves. Only if we are willing to shed the hubris, shed our ignorance, and shed the vanity, what I call the real HIV pandemic. Our inhibitions, our shame, our guilt conscience that stops us from calling ourselves as indigenous. Then it makes a very weird claim, the United Nations fact sheet, that there should be a historical continuity. So first you chase societies out of their territory, out of their habitat, and also fail to acknowledge that, like so many other species, humans are also a migratory species, including the scheduled tribes. From my home state, Jharkhand, there is a tribe called Orao, which actually means wanderer by the other Munda tribe. And Orao trace their origin to Kurk in Karnataka. So humans are a migratory species. Even Earth tectonic plate is not a static entity. So please let us get scientific. Let us get rational, let us get logical. Government for the next 15 days, and you'll see the discourse changing. Move away from the COVID hypnosis of the virus and the vaccine and the Supreme Court cases. Strong link to territories and surrounding natural resources. How does it happen when humans are migratory species? Could this be that previously uninhabited areas, could the migrants be living in harmony? Why should they presume that all the migrants were colonialists or settlers? They could very well be enmeshed and sharing the ethos in the previously uninhabited areas. These are not questions being asked by any lawyer, not by Reinhard Fulmich, not by the Prashant Bhushans of the world, not by Advocate Deepali Ojha. In a dynamic planet with changing geoclimatic conditions, why should UN presume the indigenous to be historically static? It talks about distinct social, economic, political systems, language, culture, and beliefs. What stops us? Let us start using our vernacular language. It is only because we have a global problem that we have to use the global link language. And the United Nations Declaration for Rights of Indigenous People entitles us to use the current systems till the time our ecosystems, social, cultural, natural, are restored. So these are all so brilliantly put by Dr. Erika Irene Dace in the declaration to which unanimously all the countries have signed. And it is there in the public domain. There is no censorship over it. What if they are even today systemically denied their freedom to have their indigenous economic or political system, their indigenous language, culture, and beliefs? Like in Brazil or in Argentina and so many countries. Why should indigenous systems and ways of life always be distinct from each other? There can be global indigenous commonalities. He talks about, even more weirdly, that the indigenous groups should necessarily be non-dominant groups of society. So this presupposes that the nation states and the United States and the United Nations, and of course the United States, are all colonialist institutions. It's such a giveaway. It talks about that we should resolve to maintain and reproduce their ancestral environments and systems as distinctive peoples and communities. Let us do this. What is stopping us? We all want that. Just the last few slides. Only after the last fish has died and the last river has been poisoned and the last fish has been caught and the last child has been vaccinated by the snake venom peptides, will we realize that we cannot eat money. Now look at this Aboriginal vision, how it resonates so well with the Hindu thought of Dehatmavad, that it negates that we are the Atma, we are the soul, we are the spirit. So what does the Aboriginal vision say? Of property was ecological space that creates our consciousness, not an ideological construct or fungible resource. Their vision is of different realms enfolded into a sacred space. The notion of self does not end with their flesh, but continues with the reach of their senses into the land, but continues into the cosmogenesis. What it very clearly defies is what you all know Harari says, that are we hackable animals? We are not. We are soul and the spirit. We are an expression of the entire cosmogenesis. We talk about yatha pinde tatha brahmande. The microcosm is macrocosm. So with this, I end my presentation and invite you all. I made very provocative points, very questioning the current narrative, not just of the cabal or the non-indigenous, but of ourselves. I think we need to introspect. We need to reflect into our own action and our own conduct, where the solutions really are. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you, Chandra Vikash ji. That was a very passionate presentation and with a lot of food for thought for all of us. Many of us, have not seen the detail of this the UNDRIP and this, this declaration, and we definitely need to go more into it. And before getting into the next steps, we can discuss that. Dr. Banu Prakash's hand has been up, so I would like him to speak first, and then Mr. Faisal after him.
Communism is the first step of equality and dignity of life to humans at least. And then when we achieve that, then we can go beyond it to respect and honor every other species' right to live and also right to perpetuate here on this earth. So let us not be very mean about communism, because I mean, Chandra Vikas was sounding very strong on that. Second thing is, even in Indian Constitution, the Article 4 and 5 have given very much importance to the empowerment of the tribals, especially the scheduled tribes. But that is not being implemented at all. Because so the whole, even I would love to read the UNDRIP document, but whatever good is being done by many people has never been implemented. That is the whole mafia which is trying to take over and also subdue the good narratives and also the rightful things. So we need to network the good people and create a stronger overshadowing force and a presence, so that I mean, presence with love and affection and also compassion, and at the same time reforming them, make them confess and then punish them and let them punish themselves. That would be a better way of life, I think, forward. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Banu Prakash. Mr. Faisal, please. Yes.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, right.
Let me take off the hand. How do I take off? Yeah, I'll do that later. Okay, so thank you very much for the invitation, Vikash, as always. And I'm glad I caught your impassioned plea for sensibility, I think, is the main thrust of what your arguments are. Now, like, while we're doing this, this conversation, I think that we have an opportunity in Sri Lanka for us to actually establish legally, like a precedent for what the indigenous really are. Because, I mean, at the moment in Sri Lanka, it's demonstrable that the urbanization agenda of successive governments, which is framed by something called the Physical Policy Plan. It's a published document, anybody can download it and read it. It's about a sequence of urbanization projects right throughout the country, creating what they call megacities, etc., etc. And the Sri Lankan government for the last, I would say, 20, 25 years at least, have been arguing that Sri Lanka is in transition to a services-based economy from an agricultural or food providers economy, and that it has to engage with the globalization project as a base for services. Now, this assertion, like, it's so demonstrably false at the moment, with the fact that more than 70% of Sri Lankans are engaged in traditional vocational occupations, as in fishers or farmers. Okay, to this point. So I think it's kind of a plea, you know. Surely we can, Vikash ji, focus on the UN indigenous rights assertions and argue that, I mean, 70% of Sri Lanka have a democratic right to live a traditional life. And any development program for Sri Lanka has to pay attention to that. What do you think, Chandra? It's my idea.
I've always thought that as an island state, we can demonstrably make a transformation in Sri Lanka in a very short period of time. So every crisis, also presents an opportunity to transcend and transform far quicker than in normal circumstances. So that's thank you so much for thinking aloud, and I would welcome anytime you buzz me and tell me what you have on mind.
Thank you, buddy. Thank you.
Shall we ask all the panelists, Professor Sanjay Sharma, Jessica, Nazreen ji is here to share their voices and perspectives. And a short introduction before that. Yeah. So shall we start with Professor Sanjay Sharma? So very quickly, he was head of civil engineering department in various engineering colleges and also director in charge. He's been a youth motivator and excellent credentials in terms of working with tribal areas on watershed development and river rejuvenation and various other projects. Welcome, Professor Sanjay Sharma.
Yeah, thank you, friends. I hope you can see me. My phone is getting discharged, so I'm just over my phone, and phone is just kept on a shelf in the window. So that's how you cannot see me properly. But I think it has been a fantastic, if I can say it, a workshop. Bluetooth, should I cut that off? Is this all right?
Yeah,
Better.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes,
I was just saying it
better.
has been a fantastic evening and very nice exchange of ideas. And as I keep sharing with Chandra, Vikash, my worry is, how do you translate? I mean, of course, all of you are practitioners and have been in your own lives trying to successfully put in your own spheres of influence things into practice. But then how do we take it to the India or the global scale? That is the challenge which I keep saying it. So if rest of the minutes that we are here, if we can deliberate on that, that shall be my request. Thank you.
okay, thank you. Yeah, Jessica.
Hello. Thank you so much for the opportunity to attend this presentation, this session. It was absolutely amazing. The heartfelt presentations that were made, they really, a lot of information was delivered, very informative, very life-changing, things that will cause us all to think more in connection with each other, with the earth, with regaining our indigenous rights, and to turn over a new leaf, to move past this turbulence that we have all been experiencing for at least the past 2 years. It's definitely time for a new life, a new way of living, and to get in connection with Mother Earth and to bond as human beings, to bond together and to heal from what we have experienced. I live in the US and I am an advocate for all the indigenous and all of humanity. We must stick together, and so many of us have been hurting and experienced losses in our families. I pray for all of us and know that we are stronger together. And again, this is Dr. Jessica Mathis, and I send my best to everyone. Thank you.
Could you please share your thoughts?
Thank you for inviting me, but right now I am just trying to understand your philosophy, all of you. Though we are also working on borderless global democracy, I am trying to understand and include your thoughts about indigenous people. When we think at a global level, it's all are equal and there is no question of indigenous and others. This is my personal belief. And when we want to really revolutionize the global community, we have to come out of all such frustrations, though it is really very matter of concern. But until unless we cannot have one voice from all sections of society, whether they are the richer or the capitalistic or Marxist or communist, whatever it is, until unless we bring all such good people with good heart and mind together on one stage under one umbrella, it is not that easy task to defeat all these capitalistic devils on this planet and the politicians. And for that, we have to work out a very great strategy. And we are trying to work on that strategy. Right now, it is not my turn, so I will not go into that detail, but no doubt, next time we'll talk about it when we get a chance. Thank you all for that. Thank you all for your participation.
So I'll just like to read out one part about what are the ways forward. If anyone else wants to share, I'll just need 3-4 minutes on what I see as the pathways for the global indigenous movement. Our biggest mistake was to be nudged into believing that a large majority of folks trapped into the first industrial revolution. Now, this is very important. If you look at the Yuval Noah Harari narrative, that they are just trying to do, further to what happened in the first industrial revolution, that the few countries started producing so much for the world, that in his very specific words, he says that rest of the humanity was rendered useless. So useless people, they just want to kill and get away with. So that's the very the viewpoint. So that's the non-indigenous viewpoint. And Harari makes no bones about subjugation of Africa and Asia, what's called the global south. So there is a much larger support base for Yuval Noah Harari. Let's not undermine that. That was not normal either. The development paradigm of take, make, waste was fatally flawed, but because the spoils were shared by the meritocratic class, they turned a blind eye to the sufferings and deaths of the 99% oppressed class around the world. Now comes the second industrial revolution, where a few thousand capitalists, or 0.01% of the 1% who were sharing the spoils, now want to subjugate the 99.99%, including those who were enjoying the spoils of the first industrial revolution. Life is a self-fulfilling prophecy. If we obsess about how huge and complex the problems are, we will drown ourselves into the crisis. What we need to do instead, however, if all 99.99% demand that we want the pre-first industrial revolution indigenous status to be restored, and as per UNDRIP 2007, we can opt to use FIR till then. So far, it is essential. The problem can be resolved, as it takes away their alibi that they are culling humans as vermins to save the species from extinction, an argument made in the movie Interstellar, and the World Economic Forum has been using this as a moral justification. So let us look deeper under their skin, not with some implant, but merely with our minds, to understand where they are coming from. Take that away and their entire premise collapses. Between we are indigenous, which has been the trending hashtag from the Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues annual session, as you can see on Twitter and in other places. Between we are indigenous and we are all indigenous, it makes a world of difference. Non-indigenous borders, as I've been saying time and again, on being inhuman, and lends itself to the dehumanizing and despiritualizing ideology of transhumanism, which Yuval Noah Harari represents. 3 decades of intense efforts by the global indigenous movement led to formation of UN Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues and to the drafting of the UN Declaration for Rights of Indigenous People. Dr. Erika Irene Dias wanted PFII to be at the highest level of UN hierarchy. By devious machinations, it is relegated to an advisory role to UN ECOSOC, Economic and Social Council. So this is a betrayal. We can also demand UN dissolution for this betrayal. Even as a highly undemocratic and whimsical club of aggressors, ironically called as Security Council, rules the roost at the United Nations, bringing humanity to untold miseries and to the brink of extinction. A defunct and moribund UN General Assembly comprising puppet nation states watches as a mute spectator, including this country, India, where we are presently, having failed its charter and criminally complicit in the totalitarian terror and genocide. It is time to dissolve United Nations and UN Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues to emerge out of its shadows. Gaia Nation is a mission based on future pathways for the global indigenous movement with a vision of we are all indigenous, so long as we are human and follow the house rules to live in harmony with Mother Earth and all her creation. And in words of Dr. Suzanne Raj, we move away from the use and throw culture of humans and of materials. So that's it that I wanted to share. Before we conclude, I'd like to invite anyone else who would like to share their perspective on the future pathways. Yeah, Faisal.
Thank you, brother. How lovely to hear you. So impassioned you are, my friend. So lovely to hear you talk. Everything you said, I endorse completely. There's a couple of thoughts that I had while you were talking, and that is that, if we, I don't know how much time I have, but if we take the conversations earlier on, that the gentleman spoke about communism, and I think in your talk you also talked about it, but not as much enthusiasm as I would have hoped. But nevertheless, I don't think any of these things are actually serious conversations when we are coming from the perspective of the spirit. Because if I am to understand anything about your indigenous bias or enchantment with indigenous peoples, it is mostly, I think, in terms of traditional knowledge, traditional values, and traditional wisdom. So when we take it as it refers to, almost all the authentic versions of the truth, in fact, you are talking about the esoteric, the exoteric, and the spiritual, which is actually the core of all authentic traditions. So when you are fighting your battle, which I am very much, waiting in the wings to help you to do, to fight it. But I think really it is not, it's not about the indigenous, it's not about the indigenous people or the indigenous, it's more about a thought process than a thinking process, yeah? And when I studied with, I think I've told you, one of my teachers, and it's crucial in this issue, teacher was Mudyan Tendakun, and he died before I could give him my thesis, but I wrote about it it's on Ground Views, and actually in the comments on that article, it's really worth this, because we lost this man called Sajiva Samanayaka from Sri Lanka. He died very bad, a kidney transplant that went bad. However, I wrote an article called Arya Sinhala and the Restoration of the Commons of Lanka, and you can find it. Just search for it, you'll find it. And in that, I kind of try to explain this idea of Mahasammata, and which, as you know, can be found on the mahasammata.com page, which I've just got translated to Sinhala and into other languages soon. But you see, it's this idea, Chandra, that Vikash, that the indigenous knowledge was that human beings had to create a space for human beings to discover themselves, because nobody knows what it's like to be anybody else. And because nobody knows what it's like to be anybody else, the sentient experience that each individual being is having is individual to themselves. So if there's any purpose, it must need be this inquiry. And so any civilization exists only to facilitate that inquiry. Any other purpose is false. I think I've said enough. That's it.
Thinking, Faisal, to conclude the session on your lines, that we were actually run over by the Fast and Furious. Now, Fast is a very interesting term used for Western culture by Oswald Spengler in his book Decline of the West, which essentially means some culture which has sold its soul to the devil in bargain for some technological miracles. So my statement is
called a Faustian contract, a Faustian contract.
Right, Faustian bargain. So we were run over by the Fast and Furious, but frenzied and fickle surge of juvenile delinquency. So it was like a,
No, but Chandra Vikash, but even that, even say if we take, for example, the Portuguese journey to the east, and all the like the murderous intent that came with that ever since, like the Arabs had come and gone and had been trading with India and Jammu for years. In Sri Lanka, long before there was Islam, there were Arabs. So this whole idea that this is new to anybody is like just a Western Orientalist ideology, But given those circumstances, and I mean, there are so many things that as a knowledge base we have forgotten, and it's the subtleties, like that. People like Alice Bailey and others who had got a vision of this kind of magical vibrationary view of the universe that our forefathers had, which I think, we talk about the Golden Age, the Silver Age, the Bronze Age, and the Iron Age, and we are very much in the Kali Yuga right now, for sure. But I think it's changing, I think it's changing.
Okay. Thank you so much, everyone. So shall we conclude, Darryl?
Yes, I think so. So it is
thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Jai Jagat.
Jai Jagat.
Thank you.
Jai Jagannath.